Or it's only a short time. Then the other, oh, I don't know, that I can do. Oh. Thank you all for coming. I know it's away from the board. Things that we're finding and we're going to share with you. Issues that we have with them for open and transparent about it. So, what we're going to present tonight is not every single warrant article. We're just going to highlight those that we think are of concern or brand new or they've changed. And so we want to highlight those and have a conversation with them. And one of the things we want to point out is that we're not going to be asked questions yet. All right, we're going to try to get through this presentation. We're hoping that through the presentation, you'll have your questions answered. But we do have Post-it notes, we have pens for you, jot down the questions, so if we didn't get to it in the presentation, we'll be sure we have tons of questions at the end. We want to hear your questions, we want to hear your concerns, but we don't want to get sidetracked either. So just make sure, keep your Post-it notes, and we have some somewhere right up front. So if you need Post-it notes, just, or scratch it on your hand or something. I thought we had Vanna over there. Aren't you Vanna? Blonde Vanna? Yes, yes. All right, let's go over, let's go ahead and start. And this slide right here just gives you an overall look of what the president's budget is. Keep in mind, this is still a draft. It will be final next week, but it is still a draft. We're still tweaking a few little things. You can see county tax, 13%. We don't have any control over that. The RSU budget, which did get passed last night. It still needs one more passing, and that's each county gets to vote on that on the 10th from our system. And then we have the discretionary fund amount, which is 54%. But what I want to say about that discretionary amount is that it really isn't as discretionary as we think it is. So if you look at, as you'd like it to be. Yeah. So if we look at the next slide, you'll see that we've broken just the discretionary funds into different sections. And the roads, which to me isn't really discretionary, if you want to have decent roads, is 41%. The services is 10%. And again, that's really not that discretionary because that includes things like the transfer station, the animal control officer, and ambulance, just all those kind of things that we all want and need. So again, that's really not that discretionary, but we put it there anyway. And then you have 25%, which is admin. I also want to point out that the properties is another area that we can call it discretionary or not, but when Kim talks to you, you'll have to make that decision. So let's look just a little bit closer at this is a 3-year spending comparison. And you'll see that pretty much, I don't know of anything that doesn't go up, including my weight, but that was a joke. Thank you for laughing. Everything has gone up a little bit, except you see properties has gone up a lot. That's our proposal. It really depends on the town, what you all decide. But right now, we're anticipating a huge increase there. And also a big increase in the roads, mostly because of the causeways. And those of you were around last winter, you know what that looked like, know that there's some issues there. But pretty much everything else is pretty consistent with the way our economy is going. So next slide. So let me just, before I forget, to tell you that this slide and the next slide, these items are not, the individual items are not part of the warrant article itself. We purposely did that so that we have a little bit of flexibility, so that if we need to change something here or there within that, we can change it, but we're giving you this overall picture of what it should look like. This will be a reference sheet that you will get at the town meeting. So it'll explain how things are how things are laid out, but they aren't part of the article, just so we have some flexibility. One of the first things you might notice here is that it looks like we've given the select board members a raise because it's gone from 4,000 to 5,000. But if you look closely, last year, or until last year, we actually had another select board listing, and that was for the chair of the Senate. And that was another 4,000. But right now, if you total those four, first four, you'll see it's at least 17,000. What we've done is actually cut back, and each of the select board members get the same amount, 5,000. One of the reasons we did that, the main reason we did that, is because we worked as a team. And yeah, we all have responsibilities, but nobody has anything more or is getting paid for anything other than just being the select board's role. We've chosen to make that change so that each of us is making the same amount of money. Nobody's making more. There was, like I said, there was a chair of the select board made an amount. There was the chair of the assessors, board of assessors was also getting another 4,000. So that's one area that we actually saved a couple $1,000. The other real change on this one is, notes here. Is one of the ones is the number of hours that the municipal agent works. We've upped that. Since he does put in a lot of hours. That was one this year. And what was that? That was last. Sorry. Okay. Probably why it shouldn't have been in there. But there is also a slight pay increase for the tax collector and the town clerk, so that we sort of equalize salaries and bring them closer to the municipal agent's salary, because there's been a big disconnect between salaries. So those are really the major changes for the compensation and benefits. That our salary as a select board went down, and we had a little bit of raise for the two ladies that are over there. All right, next slide. This one also, again, is not going to be on the warrant article itself. It will be a reference sheet, but basically what we will be asking for town office operations is a total for $65,000. That's up almost $10,000. The reason for that is simply because technology. Trio has raised its prices a lot. And not even because we're now doing the cloud version or the electronic version or whatever. It's just about $5,000. And the other thing that we've decided to do is include the CAI that every year we've had as a separate item. And instead, if we're doing it every year, then we may as well put it in the admin budget. So that was taken out of someplace else and put in here. So it's really not that it was raised, it's just the biggest amount was really that brought this up was the trio, which is how all three of the staff work. And without trio, we'd be in a big mess. I can't even think about what we'd be in. So I believe that's it for me. Oh no, one more. Oh, no. I'm done. Yes, listen. Okay. Article 15, we're asking for 21,000
pay an assessor's agent for the coming fiscal year. This would be Josh Berry, who we hired in January to fill Evan's place at Evan, Jane County Commissioner. So Josh has been working with us. We did put an RFP out for this because we needed to know what people would be asking to be an assessor's agent and in order to put it on the warrant. And Josh was the only bid that we received, so we accepted that, and it's for $24,000. So that covers Article 15. Article 16, we are asking we'll be seeking bids again, but we're looking to possibly solidify somebody for a 3-year contract. Part of the reason is you wind up usually saving money doing that as opposed to going out to bid every year for somebody. And you have a little bit of consistency and reliability, and I think the town needs that. So Article 16 is asking if we are permitted to go and seek a 3-year contract with the assessor's agent. Article 17, the reval. So last year we put 65,000 in the capital account to save for the revaluation. Yeah, this is the contract. Anyway, so we have some saved up. We went out to bid for reevaluation, and we only got one submittal, and that was RCS, Josh, who is our current assessor. I just tell you a quick aside. We went to the school board meeting last night, and there was a gentleman complaining because the school district wasn't up to date on their audits. And the superintendent proceeded to explain how the auditors are backed up because they can't find auditors to do that. And the same thing happens in municipalities with auditors, but it also happens with assessor agents also and revaluations. So we were lucky to have Josh's bid, which we did accept, and that was for $165,750. So we're looking for permission. Article 17 is looking for permission to enter the contract for a full revaluation, which would begin next year, probably around this time or maybe early summer. So this time period next year. And Article 18 is asking to fund that account this year. And then we'd have to ask again next year to get the full amount of the $165,000. So as I said, we have 65 or 60 in there currently, and we're asking for 55 this year, and I believe 55,750 next year. And this, hopefully doing it this way, it's a little less painful than coming and asking to pay the whole amount in one tax year. So that's the thing behind that.
And if you want to show what we need at the rebound.
Yeah, the reason we really need to do this revaluation is because the state keeps sending us values on properties that we're not close to the 100% anymore. When we're not meeting that 100% value that they say that we're supposed to, then our reimbursement for things like homestead exemption hurts, and then it also hurts you because your homestead exemption is then going to be lowered. So anyway, so we really need to do that so that everything's seen, everything is on the books, everything's on the record, and a revaluation is revenue neutral. There's no revenue that you get from doing revaluation. It's just making sure that everybody's where they should be and paying what they should, or maybe not paying as much as they should. We don't know, but so it's eyes on for everything. So that's why we need to do that.
When the black car is the first one on this side, it's a foot into the road.
Okay, do you know what kind of car it is?
I'll take a shot, let's go.
Charlotte, do you want me to move your car?
Yes.
It's sticking out into the road and I don't want you to get hit. Like this far. You want me to move it for you? Okay. Do that.
Katie? Charlotte, do you have a full tank of gas?
Now we get to the part where we want to spend some money that maybe hasn't been talked about in the past, properties. So as a group, we've looked at all of the town-owned properties, and in the past, some properties had committees with a budget, other properties didn't have anything and kind of got ignored. Some things got taken care of, some things got slipped through the cracks. So we kind of decided collectively that we should disengage from having separate property things happening and bring it all into one group, look at everything, do inventories on everything, do evaluations of all the properties. And now we can maybe get a little bit of an idea of priorities of what do we need to take care of immediately? What do we want to have for long-term properties, maintenance stuff taken care of? And to the point where we didn't have any records for even knowing when did the furnace get service last in this building, or when was fuel delivered, or when were plumbing pieces taken care of. There just wasn't any continuity over the years. So we're trying to put owner's manuals together for each one of the properties and then start record keeping and start doing some regular maintenance sorts of things that may have been bypassed over the last few years or 40 or whatever. So it's it shows the properties that we own as townspeople. Some of them you may not even be aware of. Obviously, some of the buildings, the one we're sitting in, we've got the town office, we've got the fire department, we've got the right landing. The buildings we've got, then we've also got other parcels, the Cloud Preserve, plus another small piece that abuts Cloud that probably people don't know about. We've got a little tiny piece up of North End Road, just big enough for a few Adirondack chairs to sit on. So kind of an interesting little spot there. We've got an 18-acre parcel in Mosersville. I don't know if any of you have noticed some pieces of flagging getting put along the side of the road there, but there has been some thought of creating a playground area or a park area or even a little bit of a trail system on that 18-acre parcel. We're running into a problem because we can't get a road cut so that we can get parking area in there because of where it is on the curve. So Donna's been working on trying to make a land swap, so that we could get road access to that 18 acres. So nothing immediate is gonna happen there, but we are thinking of those sorts of things. And we've got this building, which we're gonna talk a lot about tonight. And we've got a little dump site, which we're responsible for maintenance. So there's a lot. There's a lot there. We've broken it down so that each of the buildings, particularly, we've got a operating budget, which is, that's kind of year to year, it's gonna sort of be the same, more or less, maybe up a few thousand here or there, but the operating budget should be pretty standard. And then we have maintenance budget, which we're gonna ask monies for each of the buildings, with the idea that we can start checking off some of the priorities on the maintenance that's been deferred for so many years. So let's just start. The town office is our best building, the building with the least amount of problems and the least needs right now. Operating budget typically is around 14. We're going to ask for 14,500 this year. And as you can see, it's just standard fare stuff, electricity, regular building expenses. When we did our inventory there, and I have to thank Chris Malliot for his donation of his time and his knowledge. He and I went around. We've also had some engineering studies done on the buildings, but for the town office, we don't have anything major that needs to be taken care of, imminent danger sorts of things there. But we do want to pull back some of the brush and the greenery that's right up against the building that leads to rot and bugs. So we're going to do a little bit of that with some of our plant-loving people. We need to do some scraping and painting, some trim replacement. We've got some seals on the windows that are broken. Lisa did a study there week before last.
Last Friday.
Yeah, for energy and insulation, where they put the big fan and they watch the windows go like this. So we've got some points of interest on that that we'll take care of it. Nothing major. We have $9,200 in an account for the town office. So for this year, we're just gonna ask for $800. To round it up to an even 10, that should take care of the things that we've identified. Maybe in the future, we'll start saving again, because at some point it'll need a furnace or maybe a hot water heater, or, you know, things go, just like in our own home, but that's the easy one. Salt and sand shed, another one, not too hard. We're asking for $1,500 this year, and regular operation of it doesn't cost too much. Right there, you've got the street light electricity on this chart too. That's the street light for the Ospreys over at the bridge. That's so that they can find their way back at night time. They've been out the party. But the salt and sand shed, operating expenses, electricity is about 1,000. So want to keep a little bit in the same town is that in most of those situations, concrete based metal buildings, salt being stored inside, as you can imagine, the electrical systems really grow over time. So at some point, we'll probably need to do that. We may have to replace the door at some point. So not really a big thing, but we want to make sure we're prepared when that happens. Our new sign and flagpole site up at the head of the island. How many people love it? Oh, good, sure. So, it's a great addition, it's being used well, I think people appreciate it, but it's gonna take a little bit of maintenance, so we're gonna have $1,500 there. And again, back to our plant lovers, we do have a plan to spruce it up a little bit and put some plantings there, make it look a little bit nicer. We also would like to get some feedback on the old sign that's up on the hill. We're thinking we should replace it in kind with a new one that says the same thing about Jeremy Swan. And so give that some thought, whether you think there's any value to have an old still and use it along with a new.
Just a question on that,
Yeah.
for electricity. If we were,
You came in late, I'm sorry. We're asking you to hold off all questions until at the end.
okay,
But let me get you some Post-it notes, so we don't want you to lose that question. We don't want you to lose the question, but just because we want to keep it going until the very end.
All right, now we come to this building, town hall. Average expenses for keeping it up and running for the year is around 7,000, so we haven't added anything to that. I will tell you that we probably saved some money this year because we actually shut it down for most of the winter, so we were not heating it. So we should see some savings on our oil expenses for this year, because of that. But in the future, we're not really sure if that's gonna be an ongoing thing or if we're gonna fix it up so that we can use it all winter. So we've got the $7,000 as the proposal, as it has been the past 2 years. When we get to the maintenance, this building is in dire need. It is a 300-year-old building or 400, how old is it? Older than almost as old as me. And what we are finding is you can just look around, you look over in that corner, you'll see that the floor is starting to do this. We already had identified the front of the building as being in dire need of replacement. We've got that work scheduled and coming up. We've got the ramp scheduled. Both of those things came in at a much higher cost than what we had anticipated. So we have to deal with that. Chris and I spent some time looking at the building closely, and then Chris came back and spent even more time looking at the building. And what we have found is that there's a lot of rot that has happened in the outside walls, both the north side, the back side. The furnace system needs a $3,700 fix. So we've really got to decide, do we want to maintain this building? And if we do, we need to start doing this work because it's going to fall down if we don't. So give that some thought. I would encourage you today, before you leave, to just do a walk around the building And you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a place over on this side where between these two windows, they had holes in the sills. I don't know how long the holes had been there, but the water had run down through the holes in the window sills behind the siding. So now we have boards that are holding the siding up, but those boards are rotting. And the water was all running down behind that. So it wasn't real visible, I'm sure, for the last 15 years on the outside, but that's what's going on the inside. So
Go back a slide though, because you didn't talk about the transfer. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things, when I mentioned that the front of the building, the projects that we had put on last year's warrant came in much more expensive than what we had anticipated. We didn't do those projects last year, obviously, it came up the same old ramp that's been there forever. So in the warrant, we're gonna ask for monies that weren't spent last year, but were put aside for this building, get transferred to stay with this project versus if we don't do that, then that money is gonna go into the surplus. So we'd like to keep that definitively just for this building. So we've got $10,000 that was raised for the ramp and $20,000 that was raised for the bathroom. And we're gonna put the bathroom on hold until we take care of the structural problems, because it doesn't do any good to put a new bathroom in that corner and have the rest of the building fall down around us. So, that will be in the warrant. That's what we're gonna ask you to transfer that money forward. And then we're gonna ask for $50,000 to be added to what we have in the account now for the repairs that we're gonna do here. And just to give you, we don't have them all itemized out, but I will tell you, and again, I'm gonna thank Chris for his work. Storm windows for this building, the estimate came in at $10,000. Just to put storm windows on it. Gutters, $3,300. That's $5,000 worth of siding that's sitting right there. So as we talk about cost, as you know, like everything's going up and up. All of these repairs are only gonna get more expensive. So for this year, that's what we're gonna ask for. I'm not gonna tell you that we're gonna be able to get everything done that we wanna get done, but we can at least hopefully get it sound and structurally repaired so that it doesn't fall down. And we have the fire station. Everybody know where the fire station is? Yeah. Anybody looked at it closely? Oh, Stacy can talk to this as well. The fire station is another building that has had deferred maintenance over time. And we have a report even from 10 years ago that showed some structural deficiencies there. It had some recommendations in that report. Unfortunately, none of that was tended to. So here we are, and we're going to readdress those. There are portions of that building that probably are not going to stay around. There's portions that maybe we can salvage and maintain and keep up. So I think we got to think longer term than right now for the fire station. In this warrant, we have 15,000. That's just for our annual expense of operating and maintaining it. And then we're going to ask for another $50,000 from you folks. And that 50,000 is not to fix it. That 50,000 is so that we can get some solid engineering and some architectural help and some plans for how are we going to take our fire department into the future. Because where they're being housed right now isn't sufficient, isn't adequate, and actually isn't safe. So the 50,000, I don't want anybody to say, oh, 50,000 will fix it. Yeah, no. 50,000 is going to get us the data, it's going to get us the plans, it's going to get us the ideas. Chris, you're smiling, I can see you over there smiling. And next one. The Wright House, the Ferry Landing House. Annual expense for operating the house is about $7,000. Currently, we have our history committee and our Friends of Westport Island history group in that house. In the house, there are most of the artifacts that belong to the people of the town of Westport, historical items, and we need to do some major repairs to that house if we're going to keep that and operate it as any sort of town property. So we're going to ask for 7,000. That's regular, and if we were to go ahead and fix all of the things that have been identified there that need to be fixed, we're looking at about $40,000 in cost, for the town clerk. Notice the picture there? So here. That's all one. So, the roof needs help. We have hazard trees that need to come down. We've got a deck that is in question, whether it's stable enough to have people on it. We've got plumbing issues, we've got septic system issues. So it adds up to a lot. Now, do you want the good news? The good news is, we have a proposal from the Friends of Westport Island History that may be a win-win situation for all of us. And in this proposal, which I'm gonna let John Henderson give you the details of, but the Friends have offered to lease the Wright Landing House for a certain amount of time, like 99 years. And if that can happen, they're willing to put the monies into fixing it, repairing it, and even enhancing it so that it becomes a true town gem of a history center. So we do have an option, rather than the townspeople paying the money to fix the place up, we could move forward, letting the Friends do it. One of the advantages there is they can fundraise, and they're good at that. John.
I gotta defer to Dennis.
Oh, Dennis is doing it, okay.
The only reason I did it last time was because Dennis spent work here.
Okay, that's all right. Dennis is gonna give you his proposal from the Friends of Westport Island. Yep, I want you to stand by the, right here.
Hopefully everybody can hear me. My voice is kind of bad these days. But as mentioned, this proposal is for the Friends of Westport Island to take on some of the responsibility for maintaining and keeping up the Wright House at Ferry Landing. And to make some investments in that house. So that made for a long-term basis. So that's our objective. Well, you know, what else? Those sponsorships. So, but people are and all the artifacts, documents that we have are all by the town. The Friends is reaching out to the community, putting on displays and exhibits, sponsoring events, whereas the history committee is looking inward, protecting the town's assets and preserving the town's assets. Next slide. So, step one, the greater strategic plan within the Friends. And that strategic plan comes in two phases. The first phase is to make improvements to the existing history center, rearrange the floor plan slightly, free up some additional space that we can both use for exhibits, and to create a community room that will be available to other users. In addition, to go back to prior slide quickly, we're going to make an investment of about $28,000 to do some repairs along with the modification of the floor plan. We're going to fix a notoriously problematic C frame. We're going to shore up the deck because it's place more than one. Keeping the boiler going. It's not efficient. So, water. Put it on ensure that the climate facility, which is how we refer stays safe. Also, including certain that you see the climate. Example. Can't share it. So you don't need that bathtub anymore. So we're gonna take the bathtub out, we're gonna create a little more space to make it ADA compliant. Next chart. Supposed to be the history center. You notice this southwest corner of the old living room has a lot of exhibits in front of it, and some of those exhibits have to be protected against sunlight. So we keep the curtains down. If you take the curtains up, it is a magnificent view, probably one of the best on the island. Looks right down the back river and across the back river. So we'd like to dedicate that area to be a community room. So that various other, besides the history committee, besides the friends, can use that facility and take advantage of the very nice setting. And whether they be knitting groups or book clubs or senior groups, they can make arrangements through the friends to have access to that space. Next slide. Long-term, phase 2 is to expand and add on a wing that would be a proper museum wing for that building. And you'll notice the building looks very different. This building will have the roof modified to bring it to like a 45-degree slope, more like a typical historic building. It'll be cedar shingles on the side, so it's going to look like a maritime age building in the 1850 timeframe. So it'll be an attractive property in its own right to visit as a historic site. We'll have space for outside exhibits like a historic boat, for example. And with the stability of having the lease, we can then go about trying to raise the funds to make that happen. We're gonna have to raise about $225,000. But I think it's gonna be an asset to the town and that will be very, very valuable.
By the way, there are handouts in the back, if you didn't get one that Dennis and his team put together. Okay.
So on the right landing subject, I don't want you to think like we haven't given this a lot of thought and a lot of work. We put a lot of work into this, and this proposal, we feel, is probably the best win-win situation that we could come up with. We did look at other opportunities, like renting it out long-term, like selling the property off, which, as it turns out, isn't an option because we still have the rest of the ferry landing to maintain and operate for the boat launch area. The pier stays with the town, the outhouse, the parking areas. We still have all of that property there to maintain. So we feel like this is just the winningest opportunity is to keep it in town, keep it with the Town History Center. And so when we go to the warrants, we're going to be asking for support for that thought. Next, we got Jimmy Cromwell to talk to you about roads.
Oh, yeah. No big surprises. Anybody that's been around West Shore Road recently has seen that we are now ready for pavement. It's been an expensive project, $650,000, a lot of money. There may be some nickels and dimes left in the end, but that's what we're looking at. One of the beginning slides, there was a lot of yellow in that pie chart that said roads. That's winter sand plowing, road maintenance, road improvement. I'd like to see that shrink. We gotta get these roads in better shape to make them cheaper to maintain. And that's my goal, is a 10-year paving plan. It sounds expensive, but once you get these roads in good shape, you can do an 1.25 inch, 1.5 overlay. And you can have decent roads for fairly short money. But culvert's gonna be changed, ditching's gonna be done. And 10 miles of dirt road is probably more dirt roads than most towns around have. And you can quadruple the maintenance cost on a dirt road. But had to solemnly swear that I would not pave anything new. And how could I, when we have the paved roads that we haven't messed with yet, looking the way they do? And myself, everybody uses the roads. I see a lot of big tax bills down here. And I feel everybody deserves better roads than what they have. But we gotta get to the point where we're paving a mile of road a year and we're adding gravel to a mile of dirt road a year. And once we get to that point, we can have decent roads. And we won't, that yellow will be smaller. That's my goal. But we gotta get there to that point first. And then everything else is, maintenance. You gotta grade the road, you gotta mow the sides of the road, street signs, trimming, trees. But I'm trying to do improvements with that maintenance money as well. The roads are gravel deficient. A lot of them have been graded. You can tell where there's plenty of surface gravel to work with. You can tell where there isn't. And you can see some wedge boulders showing that didn't used to show. Because there's not, this place is not a lot. So we need to keep improving. Cause taxes go up, but all this stuff is so expensive, and doing the best I can, watching your money. And trying to spend it as wisely as possible. By not doing the status quo that we've done. We know this area is a problem, we kicked the can down the road for 15 years. It's time to fix it, so we can stop dumping money there every year. Well Road, long-term fix for an annual problem. There's gonna be one addressed on West Shore Road this summer. Problem, every year, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's not so bad, but it's always a problem. Let's fix it, let's stop throwing money at it every year. $3 grand, $4 grand, $5 grand. We'll spend $50,000-$60,000 to fix the problem. And then people can have it. And the big thing was this spring is it was impassable. We got people paying a lot of money in taxes and they have to go around because the road's impassable. We gotta at least move into the 20th century.
Don't sit down. Yeah, one more sec.
We're also asking for 25,000 to start a long-term causeway maintenance fund. Or improvement or replacement or something. We had an engineer's report done, thanks to Dennis Dunbar and a lot of time. The results of that, to replace this causeway, not replace, but reconstruct this causeway, Heels Cove Causeway, and the culvert on the post office road, tallied up to $6.5 million. That might increase the tax bill. But you gotta start somewhere, and 25 grand doesn't get a lot, but it's a start. And now, once we get the road improvement stuff caught up a little bit, maybe we could put more than 25,000 a year in. But if we put 25,000 a year in, eventually we'll have some money. Should we get enough money to actually do something on it? Because anything there on them is gonna be expensive. Sea level rise, they wanna build them up, we'll build them up and maintain two-way traffic, you gotta go wider. And when you get into in-water work, you're spending a lot of money and a lot of permits, and a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy. It all costs money. Any more, you know, describe it anymore?
Nope, just
No, no.
the driveway.
What's that?
I added 10 more slides.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks for coming.
Oh,
Well,
Excuse me, yeah. So last year, town warrant, we asked for permission to apply for energy efficiency grants, which we did. And we actually received 2 this year. The first one was for technical assistance in energy efficiency, which basically means an energy audit. And that happened they approved us for this building and the town office. And that occurred last Friday. And we'll be receiving a report from that company in regards to their findings for those 2 buildings. And the second grant, the second grant that we received was for actual heat pumps. We were approved for, I'm sorry, we were approved for heat pumps for town office and for this building. Because of everything that's going on with this building, we applied for the grant, we asked to be able to stretch it over 2 years. So luckily we have 2 years to spend the money. So the town office is more of a sort of a known quantity in terms of the heat pumps, and hopefully next year we can start the wheels turning on doing solar panels, so that the town office is going to be basically its own self-contained powerhouse. This building, we did the energy audit. I was in touch with Maine Preservation, and we're going to be meeting with their field representative in June to assess the building. So this building kind of, you know, certain things don't make sense to do before you do other things, like Kim was saying earlier. So this building is kind of in the midst of figuring out what type of insulation we need and the hows and whys of how that works, and the windows as well. So what we're asking for is the permission to transfer $14,500 out of our grant matching fund capital to pay for part of the grant, that the second grant, the heat pumps. We had a matching amount of $14,500 to cover insulation and ceiling for the buildings. And actually Dennis and I met with one gentleman at the Bright Landing House. And then Dennis met another gentleman yesterday, the day before yesterday. And they went over the town office and Right Landing. So we're getting a lot of sort of opinions and information on the next steps of the buildings, but obviously insulation is important. If we want this building to be used more, you know, we have to kind of shore it up in every way we can. So that's what the Article 52 asks. It's just permission to transfer funds. Oh, speaking of transfer, okay. This is, Article 61 is asking for permission to transfer $194,274.92 from surplus. Because there was a mistake made. The town warrant was fine, but when we went to do the commitment, there was a money number mistake. And what happened was we didn't have enough, we didn't ask for enough money. So when it happened, we realized that obviously an easy answer would have been send out another tax bill, but we didn't want to do that because last year was already contentious because of the things that happened with the tax bill. So we thought that this was, we had the auditors come in and they went over the audit with us, and they let us know that our surplus has currently 606,000. If we take this out, we'll have 412, which is still enough of the recommended, close enough to the recommended 10 to 12% minimum that we should have. There really isn't a maximum that we can't have, but minimally they say it's best to have 10 to 12. So we'd still be in that range. So yeah. What's that? Oh, John.
Good evening. You get a bonus tonight. You get 2 meetings instead of 1. We noticed a planning board meeting for tonight in order to do our business. We have a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order. The quorum is April, myself, and Jeff. What we're doing is reporting to you on ordinances that are in your packet. I'm not going to read it to you, but I'm going to hit highlights. There are 4 basically areas of the ordinances. The first one, the Christies who are here came to us and asked for permission to convert a parcel of land they purchased into a commercial fisheries maritime activity zone. If you're not familiar with it, if you weren't at that hearing that we had, it was really well attended, and a lot of good conversation. If you weren't there, the property is pretty much right next to the lobster cove. And that proposal is to, as I say, convert the zone to allow more commercial activities related to maritime business, of course, that being on the river. So we voted after a long hearing to recommend that the select board put that on for you, for the town, to vote on it. We would recommend to approve that. The second area that was addressed last year by the ordinance committee, and just never quite made it out the door, was a proposed ordinance in order to allow this gentleman to have eyes on private property for access that are built for the first time and access town roads, so that this gentleman will be able to protect the town road from any erosion or potential damage that could inadvertently be caused by someone who just hooked up to the town road and never had the opportunity to consult an expert about what impact that would have on the road. So we prepared an ordinance, and Gary Richardson, Jim, and of course, planning commission went over it, and here's everybody's happy with it. I'm happy you all also to be approved at the town meeting. Another probably less exciting but absolutely necessary ordinance change is one that April championed and put a tremendous amount of work into, is to basically do some housekeeping on the ordinances that we have. Rich Lawrenson, when he was chair, and Mr. Mooney as well, really worked to try to get the commission to begin cleaning house, reconciling consistencies, and just taking care of nits and gnats in order to fine tune our ordinances. Nothing really substantive to report to you about that, but it's a necessary process. And again, we ask for your support. Finally, turn around out in time to do the business, whatever that might be. So we propose those widening, requiring roads and subdivisions in certain areas to widen and turn areas allowed.
Do you have a couple of the shorter, a lot of people are the same as the building code, they have to match.
Yeah. And there's our expert on the changes, reminding me that not only did we do housekeeping cleanup with respect to the building code, but also the subdivision. What you have, if you start to look at these things closely, is parallel and language, parallel sections to talk about the same thing. one in shoreland zone and one outside of shoreland. We didn't make sure those were reconciled. And doing the same thing. Consistent. Did I get it right?
Yes, yep, and then there's a few amendments that we have to make because the DEP, every time we amend the ordinance, they have to look it over, and so when we changed some of the definitions last year, they looked it over and they had a few, corrections throughout the ordinance. Gary took a look, they're not, major effect in any way, so they're, yeah, required by the DEP.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line. We're just a pass through the states that we have to do these things. So we. All right, thank you all very much. We'll keep the meeting open until the very end. Close it after we pass.
Just a little note, remember last time we did a vote as the planning board,
But to close,
Oh, yes, thank you.
so motion to,
Yes, we've done this once already, but we're gonna do it again tonight. So is there a motion, from planning board members and a second to recommend these changes to be placed on the, agenda for the town warrants at the town? All in favor? All right, unanimous. Thank you all very much. All right, we'll close the meeting at the end of this meeting. Thank you all very much for your time.
all right, and we will take your questions now. Please ask one question at a time, loud and clear, so that Charlotte can capture it, that we capture it here by the owl. And if there are any questions, are there any questions in the Zoom?
not so far.
Okay, so anybody have any questions or comments? We welcome comments. So we've put a lot out to you. Like I said, things that we've discovered over the year and just trying to share that information with you. The town has to make a decision on these, but we just want to share with you some of the things that we've found. So thoughts, comments? Hi, Ted.
Just a follow-up from John discussing, or zoning regulations saying that has to be changed, and then we'll watch lines that anything wrong with zoning. We just want them to. That, this will change. Specifically, Charlotte, that's when you got.
Yeah, Jeff actually.
Well, the most restrictive applies. So, anyway, we just put it so that it's just, but increase will be reduced, which will rule anyone. That one, but all orders. But where the flying, the code flying, or zoning flying, property control. And then.
April.
The section of the building code that talks about this is referring to the shoreline zone. So it was setting limits for the shoreline zone, which did not match up with the shoreline zoning ordinance. So those would never need to apply, but we wanted to make the shoreline zoning ordinance that, I think the changes to the shoreline zoning ordinance, did it make it better for CSMA? Or
Well, what it is, and I think the one point that it wasn't a requirement for stuff. And it really was, I don't know if it, I don't think it impacts at all.
I mean, overall, I mean, it looks like, you're increasing, shoreline zone, you're not gonna like that. Like there's some parcels there that, are existing, and now somebody would want to potentially use that, now it's gonna be 3 acres, not 50. So some of those, parcels would potentially be not usable for a small business, or some other applications on that wall. Just because they're existing, yes.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, we have some redundancies. In other words, building code talks about what is going to be done. Shoreland zone, but it can't override shoreline. It's supposed to keep a shoreline zone, So what we did is make sure that it says what it's supposed to say. It didn't say what the land zone says, who corrected it, make sure it's what it said, building code about shoreline zone. Saying what the shoreline zone says, because that's exact. So there's no change, no increase.
Well, just look at the neighbors, it's like an increase in the lot size, you know, within the lot.
All one thing is saying, incorporate, okay, here's what happens before that zone.
You had a question earlier, you want to ask it now? You had a question earlier, did you want to ask it now?
I've got a number.
Okay, do you want to start with one?
Number one is Article 24. I'm talking about mice nuts, but whenever I go by that sign, it's usually just showing the temperatures. And on Article 24, we've got our electrical law. So why not just shut it off unless we're making a notice of some meeting or other things that the residents need to know. I mean, it's mice nuts, but a penny saved is a penny off of our taxes. Just shut it down. It's just a distraction to see the temperature up there, especially when you're coming into a curve.
I will make sure that our person in charge of that hears that, and I don't know technologically how easy it is to shut it off and then turn it back on again, but
I think we could.
Yeah.
Most towns have placeholders live, so that when they're not announcing something, they're showing something useful, that's the norm.
Yeah.
So that's what we suggested by the sign company, and, you know, that's what I did, but if enough people in town, you know, want it off when we don't have an announcement, I think it would be a select board decision, because it's more of like an administrative decision.
yeah, we can certainly
So
talk
we
about it.
could talk about it. I, you know, have been thinking about turning it off between 10 at night and 6 in the morning, just because we don't have a lot of traffic, and like Richard said, we could save on the electricity bill. So.
And it could be like, it seems like right now in spring, there's a lot going on, so it's constantly changing. We have this meeting, that meeting, but come summer, when hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter, it may be that we don't need to have it on as much, so we can definitely, definitely put that on our agenda to talk about, so, yeah. Before I come back to number 2 for you, let me just see if anybody else has a question. Anybody else have a question or comment? Hi, Simone. Yes, ma'am. Stand up, please, so we can hear you.
Where the market is for the 25 million for the long-term plan.
I'll answer that. Yeah, can you
Sarah,
repeat the question?
Yeah, her question is that there's not an article about the $6.5 million. That was the engineers proposed. If we did the maximum amount to each of the 3 causeways, the ultimate cost for raising them 4 feet wide, the gold version was 6.5 million. At this point in time, we have made a decision this year to do nothing with the causeways. So there is no warrant for any money for other than the 25,000 starting the savings account. So at some point, we're gonna have to revisit that and say, well, what do we ultimately want to do with the causeways? Do we want to replace them in kind? Do we not want to do anything? And that was one of the options they gave us. Or do we want to do something in between? Not quite the whole full 6.5 million. So there isn't a warrant about that because we're not taking any action with that yet. Yeah.
Richard, you had a second question?
Yeah, the Article 26, there's a ramp cost. I thought, we already have an ADA approved ramp at the White House.
I don't think, we haven't discussed anything about the Wright House ramp in this article.
Oh, okay. Well, I missed what you were saying.
Yeah, that's this building.
Oh, this building,
Yeah.
okay.
And your third, I'm not sure how many there are, but, you had another one?
We gave him a whole stack.
I do.
Go ahead.
On Article 27, the contract cost that you mentioned there, what was that? I didn't get an understanding of that.
Hang on. 27. 27. 27.
Town hall capital reserve.
That's the capital reserve account?
What?
You're asking about the capital reserve account?
Yeah,
All right, Kim, you want to explain that again? That's,
Yes, so last year we got $10,000 for the ramp.
right.
Well, we put it out to bid, we got 3 different bids, and the one that we went with is $22,600.
Oh, Lord.
It was not the least expensive, slightly more than the lowest bid. It was about, what, $60,000 less than the highest bid we got. But we've chose the contractor that we felt was gonna do the best job for us and that we could work with the best at 22,600. Well, we only had 10. So we didn't do it yet, but so we're asking to bring the 10 from last year into this year for this building instead of letting it go to surplus. Bring it back to us so that we can move forward with that project at the cost that it came in at.
The interesting thing is it costs about $1,000 to put the ADA ramp up at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And they want $22,000.
22,600.
well, there's a lot of work that, that's gonna be taking place there to level it out and just make people be able to allow people to park so that you can park right next to it, get your wheelchair and come on up. So there's a lot of work that is gonna be dealt with that.
It's amazing to me.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? Did you have another question, Richard?
Yeah, Article 28. I'm gonna put my glasses back
Fire station.
on. Fire station maintenance. It looked like that's being moved from one budget line to another.
It is.
So it's coming out of the fire building maintenance line item, and it's going over to here.
Yes,
That's the simple difference. Okay.
just being consistent so that all expenses related to heating or anything else, in fact, Ashley has already, ordered more fuel for this year, and she was able to order it for all the different buildings. So just some consistency there.
Then on Article, must be 29, yeah, 29. Will a proposal be put together to accomplish what's stated there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So the idea there is that we will get some engineering work done. We're gonna have some conversations with the fire department about what their needs are. And we don't want to do just what your needs are this year. Let's think 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, what are we anticipating? And then how are we gonna get there? And so we'll come back and it could be everything again. We might have just, let's fix what we got going, or it might be, let's go for the goal. In which case we would have to probably finance a construction project. So
Stacy, do you want to?
we don't know that yet.
Because he's asking about the firehouse. Do you have some?
So part of what happened is, the long story is, 10 years ago, Bob Mooney commissioned an engineer to look at the firehouse. We found some significant structural issues. At the time, Chief Mooney had reported them to the town. We said, this is a major undertaking. We kind of we pretty much shelved it. We just said, we don't know what we're gonna do. Let's just kind of try to figure out a plan forward. And we've just kind of let that ride. What kind of jump started this is MMA, the insurance company, came back and said, hey, what do you mean we have issues? Your buildings has these major structural defects. So we had we had the engineering firm, ended up with the same engineer that looked at it 10 years ago. He just came back this spring to look at it again, and we're waiting on his report. The short, off the cuff answer he gave us is, it doesn't look like it's changed much. So that's been good news is, yes, we've deteriorated, but we've kind of held the line in the last 10 years. We're hoping that gives us enough time to figure out what we want to do going forward. So those are some of the major issues. We do have some minor issues. There's some, just like here, there's some water damage in the corners and then the soffit here and there. Probably when you kick the can, eventually, you get caught up, and that's kind of where we're at now. But I think we've all kind of caught back up with ourselves to say, we know we have issues. We're all gonna sit and talk about what's the best way forward.
Yep.
And that's kind of what, that lump sum is to say, hey, maybe we need to get some experts in here. Because we don't have all the answers as to what we need to do.
Yeah.
We've got some ideas.
And just to add to that, the reason we found out about it is because MMA came to Ashley and said, what's been done with that, and they actually demanded that we have an engineer come, and
Yeah.
thanks to Gay writing a grant, we at least got that covered. So the engineer did come and was able to look at both of the Wright House and the fire station. But the MMA has already said to us, based on the fact that we hadn't done anything, they have already said to us that we're cutting back what we're covering, and we're raising the deductible to like $10,000. So they've already sort of slapped our hand, and they said, you have to have an engineer's report. We have that. We don't have the report, but we have at least the study that's been done. Once we get that, then we'll have to look at it and say what's going to happen. And we're sure we're going to have a town meeting, a special town meeting sometime next year, after we get some information from architects, from other engineers or whatever, to say, now we're going to have to figure out whether it's a new fire station, whether it's add-on, what we have to do. But we know we'll be coming back to you. It will probably have to be a loan, unless somebody wins the lottery. So that's where we are, but we just aren't at a place that we can say we need $500,000 or we need $1 million. We're not there. We know it's gonna cost, but we need to have somebody come in and look at it, and give us how to move forward. So we're not kicking the can anymore.
Because we've talked about some different ideas, just trying to figure out how to go forward. We just never really let it materialize to that next step anymore.
I'm gonna add into that. So moving forward as well, we're gonna try to not put all of the burden for all of these costs just on the people of Westport, but we're gonna explore other financial options as well, like for the preservation of this building. There may be some grants available. There may be donators that want to see, 400-year-old buildings maintained and kept and in use. So we're going to explore all kinds of options. We also have some ability, if we have an identified purpose, like the town hall or the fire station, we can fundraise as a town. So maybe one of the things to think about is doing some capital campaigning for fundraising for either one of those purposes. Like, we can't just go out and generally ask for people to give us donations, but if we have specific needs, we can do that. So those are two of the avenues we're going to move with going forward, as well as trying to keep the taxes low, but keeping the buildings in good shape. So.
Do you have another one?
Yeah, no, Article 31, and this really applies to you, Dennis, too, as well. The forecast for 2035 is that the normal high tide at the right landing will be such, there will be 6 inches of water on the parking lot. You know, and we remember that high tide we had 2 years ago where we had to put up sandbags.
Yep.
To keep the water out of the basement. So that forecast of 2035, to me, is not that far off. So, you know, looking forward, you know, what's the best move to make is to move the Wright House to a higher point or build a new structure. at a higher point.
Dennis, you
So
had.
that's something, you know, we've got to be thinking about.
So in the engineering study that we had done, that was a consideration. And one of the things that has come of it is that we would, for the future, and it doesn't have to be this year, but for the future, we would eliminate what the basement is as the basement. And instead of having water that can come into the basement and stay and be a problem, we will restructure that so water can pass through, like they do in every other coastal town south, you know, down on the Outer Banks, the way they build buildings there. So we've already considered that. The history committee has considered that in their long-term vision there as well. So we kind of understand that that's a risk. Short term, is it possible we get a flooding in there? It's possible, not as likely, but we have considered that as well.
Yeah, basically, we're abandoning the basement, so it can be available for in and out flow.
A building on stilts.
There you go, pretty much, concrete stills right now, yeah. Other questions?
Next question is really for Jimmy, whether or not we could just use gravel to initially raise all the causeways and then downstream add hot top.
You could,
So would that be,
if you go, but if, see, they're talking raising them 4 feet, if you go up 4 feet, you're gonna go wider. So now you're into all sorts of bureaucracy, you know, you need protection on the edge. Some less of the gold standards are being considered. The Causeway Field Cove has, you know, gets these voids because it's boulders.
yeah,
And they didn't have fabric and all that stuff back when that was built. That could be addressed. I think we could skin the top off that. Put some smaller rock in that won't wash down through. Fabric and then gravel and then hot top. Hot top keeps the water from going down through and keeps it, you know, running off. So hot top's fairly important. But I don't foresee us spending $6.5 million on causeways in the next few years. But I do maybe see some less expensive measures being taken.
Yeah, from a safety standpoint,
Right.
you know, we don't want to isolate people between the two causeways. They were both washed out. So the shortest causeway is the Heel Cove Causeway. And the state's projections for sea level rise, the guidance they've given us is 1.5 feet by 2050. And that's not that far away.
I took the laser down there this spring, Richard. And when me and Gary sat there and watched the water actually go across it in January storms, it went across more on Tony's side. Well, that's what the laser showed. In 2 feet, you don't have to go towards her house too far to raise 2 feet, and you don't have to go to the other end, all the way to the other end to get that level across there. I figured it would have been level, but obviously they didn't use it. So I think that could be done fairly reasonably cost-wise, and build it up 2 feet. It may be a lane and a half, it may not be able to pass 2 cars. But it would be, you know, it's so short that if you see a car, it would just be, you know, one at a time.
Yeah, just doing that one causeway will at least ensure safety for the people. So we're contemplating FEMA and asking FEMA to help us fund a 2-foot rise, which is already laid out. So we know what the scope of that is. And that won't be that expensive. The 25K, we make a good start for that.
Oh, yeah. to build the other cars back 2 feet, now you're obviously talking more money, because it's a lot longer distance. But there's something along them lines, Richard, you know, like I say, with all the other things, I don't see the gold standard on causeway. Maybe the next road commissioner will think differently, but that's 2 years away, hopefully. Or just a few weeks away, I don't know.
Oh, God.
All right, another one?
The last one.
All right.
On Article 61, where we're taking $192,000 out of the surplus. That this year, in the revenue side, we added $36,000 in interest from that surplus. So if we take that out of there, next year, we're gonna have $30,000 in interest. So it's gonna hit us harder again next year. Taking that amount out to make the tax bill look good, to me, is not the right approach. I think we've got to have a good plan on how trying to maintain that so that we have that 36,000 revenue every year.
I think you,
Stealing from Peter to pay Paul is not normally a good decision.
what we're asking for, Richard, is to use that money for this year's
I know,
budget, yeah.
I know.
So it's either we do that, or there was a mistake made, okay, an error in the calculations for our tax commitment. So we didn't ask for enough money. So if we don't do this, then we have to send out tax bills to everybody. So that's kind of the choice, a new tax bill to pay the difference. Honest mistake. These ladies over here, all of them, DD2 in the back. They're conscientious, good, hard workers.
I know
And
they are.
last
I
year,
don't
last
deny
year,
that.
last year was a little crazy, if I'm honest. I mean, it was my first year on the board. So there was an error made, and nobody lost sleep more than we all did over that. It literally killed us for months because we did the other thing with the land. And again, we go back to the revaluation. We're struggling every single year to get up to what the state tells us we're supposed to be.
Right.
And until we do the revaluation, it's gonna be this kind of, you know, horse and pony show every year until we figure it out. But the mistake that was made was just what it was. It was just an honest mistake. And we're just trying to rectify it in a way that doesn't hurt the taxpayer again for this year, if that makes sense.
So the mistake that was made for last year's budget was $192,000.
It was a calculation error on the tax commitment, what we were allowed to get from you guys. And we didn't, there was a wrong number inserted, and it was, so we came up $194,000 short because we didn't ask for enough. Or we already asked for enough from you guys, and then we didn't ask enough.
So, yeah, so there's a recommendation from the auditors that instead of sending out another tax bill, that there was enough money in the surplus, that we take it out of the surplus instead of sending out 800 tax.
And, you know, and I agree with you in terms of that false sense of security, like the school district just used $700,000. They've been using their surplus, and it does kind of create this false sense, because if all of a sudden that surplus isn't there, you're gonna get whopped. You know, so we're not using it in that way, even though it's coming out of the surplus. We're not using it to offer.
Effectively, we
And
are.
we are, right. Basically, what I'm saying
What
is,
if
if
What
we,
if we reduce that somewhat? You know, what is the balance? You know, how much more would the taxpayers have to pay? And if you draw that down, taxpayers are gonna have to pay more
We,
because we don't have the revenue.
Yeah, hold your thought, and that's actually something we can talk about. Let me get,
I'm
You-
just
you
wondering,
had your-
Ashley.
yeah, I think Ashley's.
Get a sense right now of what the surplus might look like for this year. This year, about 80,000 will go back. We'll go back.
And then we have also potentially an overlay that we're going that we can use all of that together.
So, but it'll be replenishing.
Yep.
We'll be replenishing to.
And we're
So
not
it's really
using
about
all-
102,000 that we're looking at and not 192,000.
Yeah, we would still have, 400,000 in there. We still have a good chunk. Rich, Jeff,
Yeah, just, I think you're misunderstanding the interest. The interest is not on the surplus, the interest is on all of our financial, accounts. And first, and when tax payments come in, we have over $2 million in our checking account for interest. Now, the interest is gonna probably fluctuate to a degree.
Right.
And actually, probably a good sense. But that is based on the surplus, that was based on all money in Westport Island accounts. Surplus is a very small part of it.
so we're not taking all the surplus by doing this. We made sure of that, and that's what, Kim had highlighted, or somebody had highlighted, you did, that we still have, the auditors always suggest at 10 to 12%, we have at least that much. And that doesn't include what we're gonna bring in this year. So, yeah, even taking some out, we still have some.
It's not 192, really, because that amount will take into account what's gonna be going in.
Right, right. Any other, Ron?
I think all of you agree with each other.
Oh,
This is really hard. It was a really hard year. Wonderful group of people, all of these, but it's really hard when we started finding things were wrong and then knowing we had to bring them because we weren't gonna kick the can anymore. So we had to just say, this is what it is. And the town has to ultimately decide. But we're hoping that you'll definitely go with the Friends, because that will save us a little bit money in our budget. So hopefully that will work out well. Any other questions, comments? Don't leave. All right, thank you very, very much.
thank you all for coming.
Yes. Yeah, except the heater is on here, and it's like,
I was gonna go turn it.